Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I am playing Halo on my Nintendo Switch. Yes, you heard me right. I am playing Halo on my Nintendo Switch. And I'm probably not going to play very good because I am recording, trying to keep it center on the camera, and also look at the screen and play and talk to you guys at the same time. So if I play kind of crappy, you gotta forgive me here. So you're probably wondering, well, how am I playing Halo on the Nintendo Switch? Well, this is one of the Nintendo Switches that came out within the first couple years, and I have Android installed on here, and it is running Android off an SD card, and it is running the Xbox Android app, the Cloud app. You know, the same app that lets you play Xbox games in your phone if you got a controller plugged into it. So it's basically playing off the cloud connected to a Microsoft server. It's not really playing it on the Nintendo Switch. It's just sending a video feed, and then it just sends the controller inputs to the cloud server, and then sends you the video and sound back. So I'm kind of sitting away from my router a little bit, so you're kind of seeing a little bit of artifacts there. But I'm also playing during peak afternoon internet hours on my cable internet. But I mean, that even with that, it still plays really good. I mean, you could tell there's a little bit of input lag, but it's not too bad at all. Last night I was doing various tests playing this on my TV. Like, you can still dock the Switch and playing on the TV. I also got RetroArch on here and a couple other Android games. The problem with playing on the TV, which doesn't really play on the TV really well, because it adds a little bit more input lag when I'm playing on the TV. And no, it's not my TV settings. And I think a lot of that just has to do with like a wireless Bluetooth controller. Like, you're playing the Joy-Cons with the Joy-Cons wirelessly, it adds a lot more lag to it. If you're doing just like a standard Bluetooth controller, like an Xbox One controller, it's not as bad. But when I was testing it out, I found the simplest solution to play this when docked to the TV is just take an Xbox controller or an Xbox One controller and just plug it into the USB port onto the Switch dock, and that kind of eliminates most of the hassle. I mean, you're playing handheld, the input lag, you almost can't tell. I mean, it's definitely better than playing on a TV without game mode turned on. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, it's really impressive. But if you're going to play something like cloud gaming, whether it's on a phone or on a custom Switch like this or something like that, you got to make sure you have your Wi-Fi with like a 5 gigahertz signal. You don't want to use an older Wi-Fi router, because the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, it just doesn't have the good enough latency to prevent the lag. Like it's just not good at all. So like I went to my parents' house and I was trying it on my phone there, and it was kind of playable, but not really good. But anyway, I'm going to switch it up to a different game here real quick. And with the Xbox Cloud app, I mean, it's basically whatever Xbox game that's available on the cloud that you have. But I'm going to show off some other stuff other than Xbox games real quick. So I will be right back. So here I am playing PC games on Geforce Now. And I'm playing Counter-Strike Go, which Counter-Strike Go isn't exactly set up to play with the controller very well, but that's okay. I can at least show off kind of what this is. But anyway, it took about 3 attempts of installing Android on the Switch to kind of get everything working correctly. And then after that, it was kind of a pain to get Geforce Now working, because the Geforce Now app didn't work too well. Couldn't get it to install correctly. Had to use there was like an NVIDIA Games app that was pre-installed, and then you had to sign in to Geforce Now through that, and it kept having trouble. The workaround that was to install the Firefox browser. Okay, I was having some problems with my camera here, so I'm going to try this again here. What I was trying to say before the camera cut out was, if you're having trouble pulling up the Geforce Now, trying to get it to log in here, like if you go here and you go to log into Geforce Now and it gives you like a browser error, you want to install the Firefox app and do it through there. And basically, if you install the Firefox app and then you try to sign in through Geforce Now, it gives you the choice of using the built-in Safari app or the Firefox app. You pick Firefox, and then it installs just fine. But anyway, we got Android installed on here, and how Android is installed. And again, this video is not a tutorial. I'm not going to show you how to do this because I don't want to be held responsible if you brick your Nintendo Switch or anything like that. I don't want to, or if you get your Switch banned. Even though the risk of getting banned with this and bricking your Switch is pretty low, I still don't want to be held responsible in case you screw it up. But basically, the way it's done is if you take out the Joy-Con, and there's like the little contacts there, which I can't really get on the camera very well, but you can kind of barely see them. If two of those contacts are connected while the volume up button is held down while you turn it on, it boots the Nintendo Switch into a recovery mode. And this is only the first version of the Switches that came out within the first couple of years. They patched this later on, and of course, all the newer Switches don't have that exploit. It's basically built into the NVIDIA CPU itself. But what I did is I got this little connector here off Amazon, so you kind of plug it into like the Joy-Con slot without the Joy-Con plugged in, and then hold down the power button. It basically connects all that stuff for you. Pretty easy. And then when you boot in recovery mode, you plug a device into the bottom USB port that injects the software that lets you install Android or custom firmware or anything like that. So you either plug it into like your phone using the right cable with the proper app, or you plug it into your PC and you have the app going, or they even have like a little dongle that come out that someone released that you plug in, and you just have the file loaded on it, and you just press a button and it just automatically does it. Which I think, now that I'm happy with this, I'm going to go ahead and buy that. But yeah, it's a pretty simple install, but it took me 3 times to kind of install it and get everything working the way I wanted, to where I was happy with it. But the nice thing about running Android versus like the Switch custom firmware, so you can run like backup Switch games, is Android runs entirely off the SD card that is right there on every Switches. So, and the other cool thing is you can actually, when you're installing it, you can partition the Switch SD card. So it's like half the available data on the SD card can still be used for the Switch when you're booting up Switch mode, and the other half is basically Android. So everything that's on here runs directly off the SD card, so you're not actually modding the Switch. It's all running off the SD card, and if you power this down completely and then you turn it back on, it just boots up like any other Switch, like it's perfectly normal. So in order to get it to boot back to Android, you got to plug this thing back into it, and then hold the power button, or hold the volume button, and plug the thing on the bottom. Oops, bumped the camera. Plug the thing on the bottom USB port. So basically, I do that every single time. So that's why I kind of want to get that I forgot I forget the name of it, but name escapes me. But you plug the little thing into it, and then it injects the payload that lets you boot into Android. So yeah, it works pretty good. But anyway, I want to show off RetroArch here. And of course, if you're not familiar with RetroArch, it's basically an emulator front end that loads all these little emulators, so you can play pretty much any kind of emulator that you want to play if your hardware supports it. So as far as what games are supported by the hardware with RetroArch, I was actually really surprised that I could play Dreamcast games on here. That kind of surprised me a little bit. I'm actually looking for my games folder that I created. Let's see here. RetroArch games, there we are. And we'll start off with Dreamcast games. So here I am playing Mortal Kombat Gold on the Sega Dreamcast, and whenever you load a game, it kind of shows like the little overlay here. You just hit the little button there, kind of hides all that. I'll turn the volume down on that a little bit. And of course I'm playing Mortal Kombat on here because I love Mortal Kombat, and any excuse I get to play Mortal Kombat on these videos, I'm going to take it. And right away, like I kind of hinted at this earlier, but I didn't find this to be as functional as I had hoped, plugging it into a dock and playing it on the TV. Um, if you're using an Xbox controller kind of wired in, the Switch Pro controller, you can't really wire it in and play it too well because it kind of remaps the buttons. Like for example, I was playing Halo with the Switch Pro controller on this, and the start button or the plus button was the melee attack, and the reloading wasn't working and stuff like that. So it was, but if you plug in like an Xbox One controller wired, then it worked just fine. But again, there's still a tiny bit of input lag. But when playing, we're going to pick Scorpion here. When playing RetroArch on the TV with it docked, the performance on this was really, really bad. Like even with like Super Nintendo games, and it kind of took me some trial and error to kind of figure out what the problem was. And it turns out what the problem was when I plugged the dock in, or the TV, or the switch into the dock to output the TV. My TV is a 4K TV, so it was automatically switching to a 4K output. And yeah, that's right. You heard me correctly. The Nintendo Switch was outputting 4K. So of course it was using all the CPU and GPU power to output 4K to the TV, which was affecting the performance of the games. So I plugged it into my other TV, like my small TV that I have. It was 1080p, and of course it performed a lot better. But I tried downloading certain apps to change the resolution and all that kind of stuff, and it was kind of a pain. Eventually I just kind of gave up on it. But maybe I'll kind of look into it a little bit more. But any Android developers out there, if you work for Android or Google or whoever owns Android now and developing newer versions of Android, if you're watching and listening to this, there we go, got the fatality. If you are listening to this, make it easy to go into the settings and change the default resolution of things. So that way it's not such a pain in the butt. But anyway, we're going to switch games here. So we're going to close content, load different content, go into my games folder here. And we're going to play just Mortal Kombat 2. And this is the arcade version of Mortal Kombat 2. And the only problem with playing the stuff on MAME, like with Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, is you kind of got to set 15-20 minutes aside to kind of remap the buttons. But once you get the buttons remapped, it's pretty cool. Turn the volume up a little bit because all the volumes on things are just a little bit different. But I was actually really surprised how well Mortal Kombat, or any of the Mortal Kombat games, ran on MAME, because Mortal Kombat's a little tricky to emulate because of like the custom sound hardware and whatnot. You could still kind of see a little bit of choppiness in the frame rate, but it still maintains the same game speed, and it's still very playable. There we go. Of course, I am a huge Mortal Kombat fan, playing it ever since the very first arcade game. And the thing I love about having Android on Switch, and I'm not bothering with the custom firmware on the Nintendo Switch, because that kind of adds a little more risk to possibly getting your Switch banned by Nintendo Online. But again, with Android running on it, it all runs off the SD card, and there's very little, if any, risk of getting your console banned from Nintendo. Again, it's not 100% guarantee. It still might happen, but it looks, so far it's been pretty safe. Okay, so now I'm trying Mortal Kombat 4 on the Nintendo 64. My camera cut out again, but that's okay. We're managing through this. But what I was trying to say before it cut out was, with Android on here, on the Xbox app and the Geforce Now app and RetroArch, is I pretty much have any game that I could want to play available to play now on the Nintendo Switch. Again, the Xbox app and the Geforce Now, that kind of requires an online connection because it's all cloud-based. But most of the games that I want to play on Xbox and that kind of stuff anyway they're online multiplayer games anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. You just got to make sure the latency on your Wi-Fi is really good. And even if it's not, and I'm stuck somewhere where the internet is not quite as good as it should be for cloud-based gaming, You know, I still got the Switch version of Mortal Kombat 11. There's still the Switch version of games like Rocket League and Apex Legends, even though Apex Legends is not as good on Switch as it should be, but that's a whole nother video. Now, of course, Mortal Kombat 11 on the Nintendo 64 is a really good version of Mortal Kombat 4. And N64 games are kind of hit and miss. Like, Mortal Kombat 4 runs perfectly fine. Mortal Kombat Trilogy does not. It's very, very slow and choppy. But I wasn't really too worried about it because the arcade version of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 on here runs perfectly fine. But yeah, I'm going to switch over to the PlayStation version of this game. Load content, go to my games folder. Let's see, Mortal Kombat 4, I think that's the PlayStation version. And of course, if you set up the Android correctly, and ever since about 6 months ago when they updated Android for the Nintendo Switch, and I say they, I actually mean like people that are customizing Android for this, the newest version of Android for the Switch, if you install it correctly, your Joy-Cons will automatically connect to the Switch, where there's no, you don't have to like Bluetooth sync them or anything like that. So basically, everything's set up the way it is. Or everything's set up kind of the way it's supposed to be, kind of how you would expect. And even like for Xbox games, like, you know, like the button placement is kind of different. You know, like A is B, B is A, Y is X, X is Y. If you set it up correctly, it maintains like the button layout in terms of like the placement of the buttons. So of course, this is the PlayStation 1 version of the game. And even though the Nintendo 64 version is better, PlayStation 1 version is still really good. It's still, graphics are kind of crap, but gameplay is pretty much identical. Yeah, you can see a little bit of pixelation, not quite some detail, but it's still fun to play. This was the version that I was playing back in the day when it came out on home systems. Mainly because I had both systems, and I wish I would have got the N64 version back then. But I scored the PlayStation 1 version for really, really cheap. And I hardly had any money at the time, so it was kind of the one I was playing. But anyway, we're going to show off. Oops. Let's see. Yep, that was the right button. Games. And I believe this is Super Nintendo version. Yeah. So yeah, the Super Nintendo version is probably my favorite version of Mortal Kombat 2. I remember when I first bought it and played it and got it home. I mean, it was pretty awesome. 32X version isn't too bad. That's something I don't have. I don't have my 32X games backed up in ROM form. I should see how well they run on here. Of course, the first two characters in Mortal Kombat 2 are a little easy. They're not too bad. But yeah, the graphics and the music and everything on the Super Nintendo version, it definitely captures the arcade feel very well. Slight input lag. Well, actually, I shouldn't say input lag. I'm making it sound like it's the app. But the Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat 2, slight little bit of an input problem, but not nearly as bad as Mortal Kombat 1. In fact, after the first match or two, you kind of forget all about it. But we're going to go and play the Genesis version. Basically, what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of showing off all the different emulators that I'm able to run on here. There we go. On a side note, I don't know if you watched any of my previous Mortal Kombat comparison videos that I've done. They're some of the first videos I did. But I always thought the Genesis version of Mortal Kombat 1 was crap. Gameplay is not too bad. I mean, you can still play it and enjoy it, but in terms of graphics and sound and everything, I always thought it was crap. Mortal Kombat 2 on Genesis was, of course, much better. Still not as good as Super Nintendo version, in my opinion, but like night and day difference than compared to the first one. But there's a guy on YouTube. He goes by the name Masterlin Quay. I've been chatting with him a little bit on his YouTube comments and Twitter, and watching a lot of his videos. And he's basically, oh, I don't have the buttons mapped correctly, but that's okay. He's basically modifying the original Genesis version to be more like the arcade version, and it looks really awesome. I mean, it looks awesome. It looks like it plays awesome. The sound effects are in there better. The character animations, everything. I mean, just how it is right now. If that would have came out back in the day like that, I would have been much more happy with picking it up. Like, I never picked up the Genesis version of Mortal Kombat 1. I rented it and stuck with the Super Nintendo version just because I thought the Genesis version was crap. I didn't like it at all. I mean, it had the blood, but that's about it. The blood and controls. But yeah, I mean, this version of Mortal Kombat 2, it's not as good as the 32X version, but it's pretty good. I mean, if all you had was the Genesis and you want to play Mortal Kombat 2, you got a good experience. And of course, we're going to play our last emulator on here. At least the last one that I want to show off. And I was surprised how well this one ran as well. Dreamcast games and PSP games. I've heard people have gotten GameCube games running on a soft modded Switch as well. And I really shouldn't call it a soft modded Switch. Like I said, it's running Android off the SD card, so the Switch itself isn't really modded, which is what's nice and kind of makes it safe to continue to use. But yeah, I've heard they've gotten GameCube games, but you kind of have to overclock the Switch in order to get it running full speed. And I don't really want to overclock the thing. I want to make sure this thing, doesn't overheat. Battery life to me is more important. Trying to stretch my legs here. There we go. Battery life is a little more important than everything. So, and of course, I'm worried about wear and tear of the system. I want to be able to enjoy this thing for years on out. So as you can see here, the PSP games run really well. I was really surprised by how well they run. God, I haven't played this in forever. I almost forget the combos. I used to be really good at this. Of course, Mortal Kombat Unchained is basically like an ultimate version of Mortal Kombat Deception. Let's see if I can do a stage fatality on him. Come on. Actually, let's do this. There we go. We'll do a regular fatality. And I just want to show this thing off playing Android games real quick. Of course, this is Magic the Gathering. I'm just playing a bot. I'm not playing like online or anything because I plan on quitting this game after a couple moves. But just to show you how well it works. Again, the Tegra chip, it's kind of an old chip now at this point. Even though it has really good graphics power, it doesn't really have a whole lot of CPU power because the chip's been out for, a good amount of time at this point. So don't expect to play the latest and greatest Android game at full speed just because you're playing it on the Switch. So it's not going to happen. But anything that came out, about 3 or 4 years prior shouldn't be too bad. But And we're going to go ahead and quit out here. And I want to show off one more thing real quick. If I hold down the power button, and if you restart, it'll just restart Android like normal. And here's the other thing I kind of forgot to mention. If you do this mod, you want to make sure you have a very fast micro SD card. Because again, this runs entirely off the micro SD card. It doesn't do any modification to the Switch, so it doesn't run anything off the Switch. It all runs off the SD card. So you want to make sure that your SD card is a really fast SD card. And otherwise, you're going to wonder why this mod is so crappy when it's really not. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a really good mod. I'm pretty happy with it so far. The only problem I have with it is I wish the docking it to the TV, I wish those features were a little smoother. Again, if you're gonna do this and expect and want to dock to a TV, if your TV's 4K, you're going to have some problems. Xbox Game Pass, Geforce Now, it's not too bad, but RetroArch, it's going to be sluggish. And also, you're just expect to use an Xbox controller wired, not wireless. I mean, I've been able to connect a Bluetooth Xbox controller to it every now and then, but it's just less of a headache to use to connect it wired. But anyway, I'm going to shut off. Oops, I missed the power button. I'm going to shut off the power completely. There we go. Of course, you can see my reflection in the mirror there. And now we're going to turn it on. And there's a Nintendo logo, and now it's just going to boot like normal. And there we are. And again, this is a backup micro SD card I have. It's only 128 gig, and only half of it is partitioned for Android. So I don't really have all my Switch games on here, like I do my primary 256 gig card. But I got Rocket League on here, so I'm just gonna load Rocket League. Actually, if I show you this real quick, load up the eShop, just to show you that I'm not banned. And any doubters, see, still playing on the Switch, not some knockoff device. See, here I am connected to the Switch eShop. I'm not banned or anything like that. And let's go ahead and load up Rocket League, because that's the only game I have loaded on here. And this is the same SD card. It's partitioned, so it's like half of it is for Switch. Like the Switch will only see half that's partitioned, and will not see the other half that's for Android. And I kind of want to show this just to kind of show that you can have a partitioned SD card. Again, there's still risk involved. So if you go this route, do it at your own risk. Probably a little safer to have two separate SD cards. But so far, I have not had a problem. So I'm actually thinking I'm going to buy a 512 gig SD card for this mod, along with a little plug-in for the bottom to inject the payload. And that way I can keep it with my Switch stuff, and that way I can reactivate Android anywhere I'm at in the world without having to have a PC next to me. Of course, I got the Knight Rider DLC. And that's the old DLC that I bought a couple of years ago. And it's Knight Rider. I mean, Knight Rider's awesome. And just to show one more thing real quick, just to prove that my Switch is not banned. And also, this is kind of the main reason, or one of the two main reasons why I wanted to put Android on here. One being to play Xbox games, but also the other is a lot of the criticism for Nintendo Switch with the Nintendo Online and Nintendo Super Nintendo games is there's a lot of old games out there that people want to play, and they're just not available. It's like, people always making wish lists, like, what games do you want available on here? And they're just not coming out, or Game Boy Advance, or Nintendo 64. And those rumors are kind of circling around a little bit. Like, will Game Boy games come out for the Switch? Will Nintendo 64 games come out for the Switch? But again, I mean, it's not really guaranteed with Nintendo. They kind of do their own thing, which it's on one hand, it's nice because it makes it more special, but on the other hand, it's kind of annoying because, you know, people are willing to actually pay money to play this stuff, and Nintendo apparently doesn't always like money. So, but yeah, I mean, anyway, Nintendo Switch still works perfectly fine. I'm still using that same SD card has the partition memory. Probably safer to use two different SD cards, but so far I have not had a problem. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but it looks like it's about 99.9% safe. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about Android running on the Switch, Xbox games in general running on the Switch. Yeah, just leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for coming to my video. If you would like to help my channel grow, please like and subscribe, and please click on this little bell icon so you never miss a future video.